Good morning, Jason Sulliman here from the University of North Alabama. I wanted to post a video in response to some requests I've had lately about multiple tonguing. So I'm going to talk a little bit about multiple tonguing, how I do it, and then I'm going to demonstrate some of the exercises that I do. First things first though, full disclosure, I'm really bad at multiple tonguing. I had a very good single tonguing ability right from the beginning, and so I found that in high school I was able to get by just single tonguing everything. There really wasn't a problem. The repertoire didn't ever get to the point to where the demands exceeded my abilities with that. When I got to college, same thing. I was able to kind of skirt around whatever repertoire required multiple tonguing, and I did fine. Now that I'm a little older, I realize that I probably should have just got right to it back then. So for those of you that are in high school, maybe undergraduate level, if you haven't started to work multiple tonguing, I highly suggest that you do. There's a lot of circumstances, a lot of repertoire that it can be very helpful to you, and it will help clarify the technique of all of your articulation and all of your enunciation. So, couple of things. I try to keep the exercises very simple, and what I want to do is make it 15 to 20 minutes. My goal is always 15 minutes. I do everything in 15-minute chunks throughout the course of the day. And if I have to spend more than 15 minutes on something, I feel like there's a greater chance that I'm going to lose motivation. It's going to get stale over time. But if I can do it in 15 minutes and just do that every day, then I can keep it fresh and maybe change things a little bit here and there, but it keeps me on track and it keeps the motivation level up to make sure I'm hitting it every day, and that's really what you need to do. So I'm about a month into working on my multiple tonguing, and what I'll do is I'll post a video now, and then I'll post a video, I don't know, maybe 6 months from now, maybe 5 months from now, and then if you want, you can compare the difference, and it'll hopefully just be a tutorial on what happens when you practice every day with multiple tonguing. So I do something called pyramiding. Pyramiding is where you figure out a tempo that's reasonably okay to get through. Maybe you're surviving, maybe you're thriving, but you figure out a tempo that it works, and then you pick some tempi that are above that and below that. For example, today I'm going to do double tonguing at 90 beats a minute, and I'm going to do triple tonguing at 80 beats a minute. Those happen to be where I am on my pyramid. So today I'll do 90, tomorrow will be 95, the next day would be 100, then I go back to 95, the next day's 90, the next day's 85, the next day's 80. And that's 80 to 100, back to 80. Once I'm done with that, I shift all the tempos up, and then I might do 85, 90, 95, 100, 105, 100, 95, 90, 85, and then I'll go up to a 90 pyramid. Always kind of cycling it through that way. Some days are better than others, some days are easier than others. I'm just trying to move forward with the tempo ever so slightly, and I want to go a little bit above what I can do and a little bit below what I can do. So there's that. I will be using my random metronome. I have another video posted about why that's such a great thing to do, so you'll hear it, and if you want to know more about that, you can find my How to Improve Timing video. I'm also going to be using my wobble board, as you can see on the floor over there, and again, I have another video posted about that. Highly recommend those practice tools. I use them pretty exclusively. Almost all of my practice is using either some kind of random pitch, some kind of random time, some kind of random wobble board, or a combination thereof. Let's get to it. So, 90 beats a minute, and what I'm going to do is just take a simple first 3 notes of a scale, do, re, mi. I'm going to do 2 cycles of multiple tonguing. Now some people think taka taka ta, some people think daga daga da. You can think whatever you want. Frankly, what you think you're doing, I think, might not actually be what is happening with the mechanism. The other thing to consider here is that I do have a video that's posted about fast practice technique, where I talk about how one might want to consider chunking and chaining material at the goal tempo, and how that can be a more efficient way to learn material. I absolutely think that's the best way to learn technical passages that are quite busy, that require a level of agility. But now I'm training a physical mechanism. I'm trying to essentially train my tongue to do what I want it to do. So in this context, I do slow down tempos, and I do tempos that are considerably slower than what I'm eventually going to work up to. So just to clarify the difference between the two. Okay, do, re, mi, I'll do 2 cycles of taka taka ta on each pitch. Some of you may know notice there's a little bit of dirt in these particular versions here. They're not perfect. I'm not trying to make them perfect. I'm just trying to get the multiple tonguing aspect to speak. If all the notes are speaking reasonably well, I'm going to move on so that I can keep things rolling forward. Again, I want to cover a lot of ground in only about 15 to 20 minutes. Try that one again. Alright, so that took me up to high B flat, or B flat 4. So now I'm going to go back to low B flat where I started, and I'm going to go down one more octave. Oh, that was really clunky, so I'll do that again. There we go. A little better, and again, I've made a little progress. Moving on. Oops, where am I? E natural. And now E flat. I'm going to make it a little better. So as you can hear, when you get to the extremes of the range, you're going to have less ability to really control it as well as you want to. So you may find that those last couple ones on top and those last couple ones on bottom, you want to make sure you do those a couple of times so you get a little bit of improvement. Like, the goal is to get them up to the same level as that, regular middle part of your register. Very clunky. Now that is nowhere near where I want it to be, but I did make a little bit of improvement on it. So I'm going to move on, because again, we want to try to cover a fair amount of ground in just 15 to 20 minutes. Okay, now I'm going to go to triple tonguing. Today the tempo happens to be 80 in terms of where I am on that pyramid. So let me set the metronome on 80. And I'm going to do 2 cycles on each pitch going up those 3 notes. Alright, so that was slightly better. Again, not great, but we're going to move on. Gotta relax. Again, slightly better. All right, moving on. So now I'm going to do the low half of the range. Okay, so reasonable improvement, covering the range reasonably well. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to double tonguing, and instead of doing 2 cycles on each pitch, I'm going to do 1 cycle on each pitch, which means I'm going to be moving through the notes a little more quickly. All right, so back up to 90. So instead of taka 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 ta, I'm now going to do taka 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 ta. I'm going to try that last one a couple of times. All right, now I'm going to go do the low part. Covering most of the range, covering that 3 octaves. Now, a month from now, what I might do is I might add a couple to the top, I might add a couple to the bottom, but right now I'm just trying to cover that main part of the range. Okay, triple tonguing, single cycle. So back to 80 beats a minute. And instead of doing I'm now going to do Okay, triple tonguing, single cycle. So now with a couple minutes that I have left in my 15 to 20 minute range, I'm going to go back to double tonguing and do single note. Ta-ka, ta-ka, ta. Otherwise, same idea. Just try to make it a little bit better. If you feel like you're putting the penny in the jar of improvement, okay, good enough to move on, because we've got to cover some ground and we've got to keep it fresh. C is not really speaking, and that's the back part of the tongue, the ka. So I'm going to have to keep addressing that, right? So now what I'm going to do is do the triple tonguing, but I'm going to have to add a note so that I can do one note per articulation. So I'm going to go up 4 notes as opposed to 3 notes. Ta-da-ka-ta-da-ka-ta. Obviously this is the worst one, right? So I'm probably not going to get very far today. If I set a little timer for 15 minutes, it's going to go ding, ding, ding. I might only get a couple pitches done. But tomorrow when I come back to the exercise, if everything's going a little bit more efficiently, I'll have a little bit more time for this version, so I'll get a little bit more practice on it. Over time, you get to cover more in the same 15-minute chunk of time. So let's say my timer goes off. So at this point I've covered some ground on multiple tonguing. And I'm going to do the same exercise tomorrow, but instead of doing 90 and 80 as my tempi, I think tomorrow is going to be 95 and 85 just with the way it works out. And when I'm done with my pyramids, then my pyramids will start inching up to faster tempos so I can cover these exercises with a little more velocity. I think by doing it this way, what you can do is have it only done in 15 minutes, and therefore you can keep it so it doesn't get stale. I know a lot of people that have started to work multiple tonguing, they make it about a week and they just get so bogged down with staying on the same 3 notes or just taking the one note and playing multiple tonguing on it, and they do that for the week, and then next thing you know, it's later and later on your to-do list in terms of your practicing. And so if you run out of time, if you only get 2.5 hours as opposed to 3, and then oops, multiple tonguing didn't happen, and you do that enough days in a row, next thing you know, you're not really making progress long term. So what I'm going to do is post this video, and then 6 months from now I'll post a new video, and we'll check out the progress. So hopefully I'll be able to show you something for that. So make sure you're including some multiple tonguing practice in your daily routines, and happy practicing.